Hi, my name's Ian Cruikshank. I'm the CEO of Leadbox, and I'm looking forward to spending time with you today, getting into all of those details about AI and figuring out how it can positively or negatively impact your store. Most importantly, as a senior executive at the store, you may be thinking, how can AI help me get home in time for dinner? Let's check it out. So, AI. Is it brand new? Is this a new concept? Is this the first time it's coming to life? Clearly not. Artificial intelligence and even machine learning, another kind of form of intelligent computing, have been around for a good long while. In fact, you may know of some algorithms or some decisions that are being made using artificial intelligence within Google or the Meta platform. It's all over the place, but these days it's getting a little more user-friendly as we move into another phase of AI. That said, to call it simple is maybe a little bit cheeky. It took quite a bit of time, of course, to get the ability embedded in these systems to make important decisions. We're seeing this on the regular, even as you're scrolling through your social media feed, right? The minute you say, ooh, look at that, and check out that video about the Mustang. Maybe you're looking at a Shelby show that happened recently. The algorithm is going to figure out, the artificial intelligence is going to figure out that you should see more of those videos, and you'll likely stay on the platform a little bit longer. But it is nothing compared to the computing power required for generative AI. And really, that's what we're talking about today. Think GPT and Google's Gemini. Right? So OpenAI has created this world that really kind of blew the doors open relative to generative AI and what's possible relative to having literally conversations with an intelligent being. It's pretty wild. We're going to get into some more details here throughout this conversation. So what can AI in fact do for your dealership? And I'll tell you what, I'm really looking forward to spending even more time in store with some of our dealer partners. But there's a few things that we've learned about and in fact helped people understand over the last little while that they can do with generative AI. One of those things is relative to images. So think of an image with a background that you don't quite like and you want to shift it to something else. AI can help you adjust those images. And that's been happening for a while, and it's starting to happen more and more. Another one is, and actually similar to a product that we launched in market called AI Vehicle Descriptions. You can actually generate vehicle descriptions using artificial intelligence. And you can plunk in all the details yourself, or you can get into automated solutions that help you do that much, much more quickly. You can even get into creating voiceovers, and whether that's on your voice messaging system or for advertising purposes or an explainer to help a customer understand what's going on with their car. Technician punches in details, communication gets sent out via voicemail, shows up with a very human sounding voice. And really, if you pull up GPT these days on the app, you can click a little button and start to have a conversation with GPT. The fascinating part is how human they sound relative to the intonations in their voice and all of the things that are being communicated. It's quite impressive. Optimizing meeting schedules. If you look online these days and say AI meeting scheduler, you're going to find great tools to help you improve the planning and scheduling of your day. Punch in all your tasks, punch in all your meetings, and they get organized into your calendar through automation, through artificial intelligence. Responding to chat, right? Chat has had chat bots for a long time. And chat bots have generally been a little bit frustrating in their inability to communicate effectively with the customer, or their one-track mind relative to saying, give me your contact information so that I can call you back. What if we get disconnected? I want to call you back. And not really being able to respond to questions. That's of course changed. Though, I would warn you, there's a few little catches with that, and you got to make sure that you've got the boundaries set up really effectively within that AI platform. Quite impressive products that have come out over the last while are things like service response and booking. So not only the booking process, not only the scheduling management, but even receiving a phone call from an outside party, looking into a system understanding what that vehicle is, what service is required, and helping the customer on the other line to understand what type of appointment they need to have booked. Then going into the scheduling system, booking all of those details and setting it up so your techs are busy the next day. And if you're connected to your IMS, or you actually go through the process of incorporating some of these details into your available data, whether it's inventory management, and I say that specifically versus DMS, because we get into sensitive data when we're going further down the path of DMS, customer data, and a variety of other things. So too with CRM. But when we're talking about your inventory, pricing information, being able to look at the market, understand what's going on in market, even looking at your inventory to say something like, how many vehicles are over 60 days? Or which vehicles are the oldest, right? You can pull those from reports, but being able to use natural language to ask questions of your data gets to be a huge time saver and quite impressive as far as a tool for the AI world. So in essence, it can do all of these things, but what can't AI do? And believe me, I haven't provided an exhaustive list of what it can do. Keep playing around with it and you'll find out more. But what it can't do is come up with the idea, come up with the question. Prompts are so important, and you have to be the one to put in the prompt information. You have to be the one to ask the question. OpenAI's CEO at one point on stage expressed that the importance for human beings relative to AI is to figure out what the great questions are. How can we improve AI? Well, we can ask it better questions. For us, when we're getting into prompts, and me personally, when I'm writing prompts within my environments that I use artificial intelligence for, I am writing extensive prompts into that communication to get a more precise answer. More precise data comes back when you give it more to work with effectively. All right, so you have to give it a prompt. It's not going to come up with the ideas out of thin air. But there's some other things that you can give the system, the artificially intelligent being. Call it Fred if you like, call it some other name if you want. But when you're providing this information, you can actually provide some non-traditional information. And by traditional, I mean punching in the details of that question like you would a chatbot or something like that. And really now you can get into the format of uploading an Excel sheet, right? Make sure you've got your data in a situation where you're not putting PII into the system or anything like that. But if you're putting in some numbers where you're really just trying to analyze those numbers, you can put that up in an Excel doc. You can go the path of saying, hey, here's a photo and I want you to extract the text information from it, right? I've been using that actually more and more. You get a document and it's in a PDF format and you want to actually have the copy. There are PDF converters out there, but upload it into GPT and ask it for the text and it gives it to you right away. Right, so there's ways to accelerate all of these little practices that we find within GPT, and they're there to save you time. So the last can't is probably a pretty straightforward one, but it's an important one to keep in mind, and it's actually a lot of fun, and people are having some fun with it. You can't get GPT to do anything physical. You can't get GPT to replace a tech. You can't get GPT to move cars around on the lot. You can't get GPT to do anything in the outside physical world. Here's a great example of a space that doesn't work for GPT. Kind of fun. The reality is these days, AI is giving you all of these abilities to work more quickly. And it's like asking questions and getting a response quickly. You still have to figure out whether that response was correct, like we just talked about. The reality is, if you're thinking about moving more quickly, you may even just relate it to power tools. You're in the yard, you're building a new fence, you pull out the drill, you drill the hole, you drill it in the wrong spot. You did it a lot more quickly. If you were having to bore a hole bit by bit, you might have realized sooner that you were making a mistake. All right, so keep in mind the speed, the acceleration of this information coming out can be a bit like a drug, right? It can be a bit like, we're so jacked that we're getting this information. We're so jacked that we're getting these results, especially when we're looking at data relative to statistics. We might get some statistics that are actually incorrect and go running down the street thinking we've got the answer when in fact we just have more questions. So for sure, it's exciting to have these AI tools, but like any tool, you can accelerate problems. Think of it this way. AI is going to make work a little bit faster, but just like with a power saw or a drill, you can make mistakes a lot more quickly. Cutting in the wrong place, drilling the wrong hole is an accelerated mistake. So beware of how you wield this tool. So one of the most fun things that happens with AI, and you may have heard this term before, and if you grew up in the 70s, 80s, 60s, that kind of thing, you may have had your own experiences with this. But hallucinations are pretty common in the AI world, right? So hallucinations are something you really need to watch out for. And I love that the space has talked about hallucinations. Right, so here's a bit of an example. A lawyer decided to make a case and got some help from GPT and cited a number of examples as precedent, and it turned out none of those examples were real. They were fictitious examples that GPT came up with. It's not trying to cause problems. The reality is it wants to have an answer. Right? So it wants to have an answer, it comes up with something that makes sense, and it feeds it to you. The lawyer has to be the expert to say this is good or bad. So there's other areas that you really need to be under control relative to security and security measures, particularly if you're in an environment where security governance is at play. So if you're SOC 2 compliant, ISO, that kind of thing, and you're thinking about where the data lives, right? That's an important aspect as well. Even when you're in environments that are paid environments within these AI tools, you need to be conscious of whether your space is on your home soil, i.e. Canadian data staying in Canada if it needs to, or US data staying in the US, again, if it needs to. So considering those kinds of things end up being important. The other aspect is relative to making sure that your organization has a clear view, that you've got policies and governance, as I said before, relative to how you're using this information or how you're using these tools, right? Just like social media before, there's all sorts of documentation about social media governance out in the space. Now more and more, getting AI under control is important. What's interesting with this is there's advantage if you can move quickly in order to understand, work with, and excel with artificial intelligence. And governance tends to slow things down. So to your benefit as a retailer in the market, you can probably use a few tools quickly now, accelerate your skills, accelerate your ability in the marketplace to have greater benefit against certain peers who may be restricted already. And if I may, the restrictions, the governance, oftentimes are with an abundance of caution. We heard that a lot in 2020. Can be a little frustrating. So caution is important, playing it smart is important, but make sure that you're thinking about whether this is data that is publicly available, like your inventory data, or data that you do need to keep safe, like your customer data. All right, so to wrap things up, is AI scary? You know what? I don't think so at all. I'm really excited about the future. I'm not in the Musk camp or anything like that. But interestingly enough, my 10-year-old boy doesn't like being anywhere close to me when I'm using GPT. So we're in a spot where it's really each to their own. In my opinion, not scary, but a powerful tool to help speed up the work that you do every day. So, we've been seeing it for a long time, generationally, really. I talk about digital natives often, young people who grew up with the internet and absolute comfort with all of these tools that we use online every day. In historical times, going back even further, there were chief electricity officers, effectively, in organizations when electricity became available. People had to figure out how to use these tools. And that's really what it's about. The key is learning how to use artificial intelligence to your advantage. Just like learning digital, as far as understanding analytics, for example, learning how to use AI is going to help you and make you more valuable, marketable in the future for your entire career. The other aspect is, when you compare it, when you're thinking of these things, you're thinking of these tools, you figure out these tools, it's real simple. You want to keep working with a hammer instead of a nail gun, go for it. You want to keep working with a hacksaw instead of a power saw, go for it. But you want to advance your skills in the digital space, AI is going to help you do it. Start to learn, start to play, and have fun while you're doing it. So thank you. Thank you for watching Ian's Desk one more time. I look forward to seeing you on the next one. If you did enjoy what you learned today, feel free to hit the like button. If you'd like to hear more about other content that we produce in the future, go ahead and subscribe. Beyond that, you have an excellent day, and we'll see you next time.